Minutes to get signed in. So I'm gonna get this shared here on my for those that are just now tuning in. We had a little bit of technical difficulty here. As soon as I went to go live, my web browser crashed and it erased the scheduled posts. So I know everybody that had signed up to get notified, that's what happened and why you're seeing it on a separate live. But wanted to say welcome. Thank you everybody for tuning in. My name's Kate Craig, and I'm one of the candidates running to be the next TNDP chair. And thank you so much for tuning in, for wanting to be part of this process. Go ahead and let you know that I can see the comments, and I'm going to try to get to answer as many questions as you all have in terms of this process, how to get involved, what you want, talk about things you want to see from the party, all of that. So feel free to drop that in the comments. And so getting ready to do that. And what do I want to say? I'm going to start answering some of the questions that have been sent to me ahead of time, but I want to start by saying that I know the perception here across the state, I mean, talking to so many Democrats as I've been going through this process, is that the feedback they get as they talk to voters is that the Democratic Party just isn't showing up for them. And so we have to fight that perception of, that's what's going on, because we can all point to people we know that work tirelessly, that give endlessly to the party, give endlessly to candidates, give endlessly to the county parties to help get the message out, to get Democrats elected. And what can we do to change that? And I think that we don't have an overarching anything that pulls us all together. And so you heard me say in the forum that what we have across Tennessee is a series of extraordinarily talented soloists. And yet what we need is a choir that sings in harmony. And we do have some great successes that have happened. We had some great candidates that got elected up and down the ticket. We do have some things to celebrate, as from needle movement to all of that. And now we need to look to how do we bring all of us all together? What do we need to do that, so that we can move the needle further, so that we can help flip more counties to being blue, so that we can help flip more districts to get us out of the super minority, to grow our bench, to connect with more Democratic voters all across the state in all 95 counties. What do we need to do to be singing in harmony, so that we can, in those changes, in those foundational stuff, then get Medicaid expanded, then have our public schools fully funded, and our teachers get the pay raises that they deserve, get real broadband to happen. I mean, what do we need to do so that we can get the Democrats in office to get those legislative changes? Because that's, at the end of the day, what we're talking about. That's why the mission of the Democratic Party is to get Democrats elected. So in the first 100 days, you've heard me say that I'm going to do 4 things if I'm elected. The first is to enact a 2-year and a 4-year strategic plan. And why is that important? Why is a strategic plan the first thing to do? Well, we can't do anything if we don't have a plan. And I mean, we've heard a lot of candidates say that. What does that mean? Well, here in Washington County, we set a 2-year and 4-year strategic plan, and we not only outlined what those goals were, but who was going to accomplish those goals, which committee, which officer, whose plate did that fall on, and when was it due? What did that look like? And that had everything to do with candidate support, to when we were going to update our bylaws, to registering voters, to all of these things, when we were going to do precinct-based training for getting precinct captains going. What does that look like? And so on a statewide level, we need to do the same thing and have those 2-year and 4-year goals and the plan and process of how to get there. And the other part is that if we have goals, I know that we've always said, oh, we're going to flip seats, we're going to get it, and we have this goal. And we never really know what the communicated path is of how we're going to get that there, and what we across the state can do to join in and be part of that process to achieve that goal. That's the other part of why having a comprehensive strategic plan is important. It also invites donors into the process so that they can see that we're not just having loftier goals, but we're also we have a plan to get there. They're realistic goals. They're smart. They're timely. In the terms of SMART as the acronym, that they're measurable goals. It's not just we're going to register more voters. We're going to register 10% more voters. Like, what does that look like? And so the second thing is going to launch an online store. And I get that might sound kind of very superficial, but I want to point out something today. Let's see if I can get around the microphone here. That I'm wearing a sweatshirt that I got from the Equity Alliance actually on Black Friday. Or no, actually on Giving Tuesday. And it says Voting is Lit. And I've been following the Equity Alliance since 2018 when they registered, so many voters, 90,000 voters, and just been so excited of that movement that's been happening, because it, for me, sparked that excitement that we saw happening in Georgia this past election cycle. And so I've been donating to the Equity Alliance, and when I got on there and saw their store and I was browsing through it, I saw this sweatshirt and went, I have to have that. And now this is something that I'm going to proudly wear around my house because it's COVID, but also when I go to the grocery store, when I go out and hang out with a friend at a brewery. I'm going to be wearing this shirt when I go canvassing. All of these things, because now we're talking about voting. Like, this creates a conversation. So we're putting a pin in the fundraising part of it for a second. Let's talk about the messaging and the opportunity for conversations. So I don't know how many people remember when Representative Mike Stewart set up a lemonade stand in Nashville, and in it, on the stand was also a knockoff AK-47. So he was selling, this was in 2017, a lemonade stand, a knockoff AK-47, to show how easy it was, how wide our loopholes were for selling guns in Tennessee. And so so if we'd had a t-shirt that said, I like my lemonade without a side of semi-automatic weapons, I would have bought that shirt. I would have immediately bought that shirt. And all of a sudden, it gives us opportunities to continue to have conversations in the public of, what does that mean? What do common sense gun laws mean? What does it mean to keep our kids safe in schools? What does that mean? So those hard conversations that we have to be having, it creates opportunities, open doors to have those conversations with our neighbors, with people at church, with all of that, the coffee mug or any of that we could be having. And so definitely shout out to the Equity Alliance, because this is an awesome sweatshirt and it's an awesome program that they've got going. But it's also a missed opportunity right now with the Tennessee Democratic Party that we don't have an online store. And so this is a huge opportunity for fundraising. It doesn't fix all of our fundraising problems, but we just can't leave money on the table. We can't miss any opportunity to fundraise. So this is one of the easiest things that we can do and get up to be talking to voters and connecting with voters on this level. The third thing I would do in my first 100 days would be to pass a statewide platform. Why is that important, a statewide platform? Well, all the time we hear, what do we stand for? Who are we as a party? I know that we have some county parties, such as Washington County and some others, that have taken the DNC platform and localized it. Well, and that's awesome. I'm the chair of Washington County. I think that's awesome. But what does that mean? And when candidates are running and they're talking to voters, there isn't already a foundation that voters know what does it mean to be a Democrat. As we're trying to reach rural voters don't see us talking to them. That's the perception. And so what can we use to better message to Democrats, whether they're urban, suburban, or rural, and start highlighting these issues? Because this can be driving our focus. This could be legislative partnerships as we work with the House and Senate Democratic caucuses. So we definitely highlight our priorities so we can outline and define for ourselves who we are and what we stand for. Because if we don't do that, we're allowing another party to do that for ourselves. And we have to define that, what we stand for ourselves. And this is absolutely something that we can do in the first 3 months. And it's important to know that this would not be something the party would do very insular. This would be an ad hoc committee that's put together by EC members, put together by elected officials, by Democrats, by allied organizations, and county party chairs to come together and create a draft to take it out to the state to get feedback, and then take that feedback back in to finalize that draft and send it to the executive committee for a vote. That way there's buy-in. There is a process where everybody got to contribute to our platform, and we can be talking about it. And the fourth thing I would do in the first 100 days would be to work with all 95 county parties to help each identify goals for growth. We have some county parties doing amazing work, and we know that not every county party is at the exact same place. For example, if I were to talk about precinct-based organizing, that sounds great to a lot of county parties, and they're going, sign me up, we're on the cusp of doing that, we just need to know how. And if I say that to some others, they're sitting here going, well, I don't know how we're going to do that. I can't even get quorum at a meeting, so you're not even speaking to us. So we can't be talking about this as if it's a cookie cutter, one-size-fits-all solution. So identifying what is that next step for each county party. Maybe it is precinct-based organizing for this one county party, but for this other, it's okay, well, let's talk about outreach. And maybe we can talk about having a picnic or having monthly Zoom socials, or, what are these things for outreach? Assessing where that county party is to know where do they fall, and how do we help them better connect with voters? And so those would be the 4 things that I would do in my first 100 days. I'm going to look a little bit at the questions that have come in here. Let's see. Carol asked, can you talk about how important county infrastructure is to not only local candidates, but also up the ballot candidates? When you're talking about county infrastructure, Carol, do you mean in terms of like the county to the state party, and I'm going to try and answer your question as I am, and I'm going to look for the comments coming in. But in that, if you have a county party, the importance of having a county party is that is the infrastructure for that the county can be connecting with allied organizations, to be connecting with voters that are already there, and working with the candidate when they step up to run, so that it provides a resource of, how do I use Vote Builder? What's the best way that I can help connect in with this church, or with the NAACP, or with the voters over here? Or is there a fish fry I could be going to? Or are you all doing canvassing? What can I do to connect in with that? Do you have monthly coffees that I can tune into to either join remotely in COVID, or can I show up to? Like, what are those opportunities so that I can better connect with voters as a candidate? That's one of the best advantages of having a thriving county party. We right now have 7 counties across Tennessee that don't have county parties. And we need to be partnering with the TDCCA to do that. I'm giving a huge shout out here to Jordan Wilkins. Sorry, Jordan, to Jordan Wilkins, who's doing amazing work, as well as the entire executive committee board. And yeah, I serve on that, so I don't mean to give myself an intentional shout out. I'm literally highlighting everyone who serves on that committee and everyone doing that work, because they're reaching out to all the county parties in their congressional district, to all the county parties across the state. I'm really excited about the handbook that's getting put together so that it can be given out to new county party chairs to help identify, what does that mean if I were to, for a poll worker, who can be a poll worker? Is it true that state law says that it has to be about even number of Democrats or Republicans? How do I go through this process? What does a reorg look like? What does delegate selection process look like? What does it look like for a county party in the middle of a campaign cycle? So figuring that out and having a roadmap is hugely important. And I would just want to give a huge shout out to the TDCCA and greatly appreciate the work that they're doing. And I think that it's a huge opportunity for the TNDP to partner with the TDCCA to help further this growth. And so I'd really like to see us better do that, to utilize that, because there's knowledge in the TDCCA, there's knowledge in the TNDP, there's knowledge in our other, the Tennessee Federation of Democratic Women, College Dems, Young Dems, all these organizations that we can be partnering with to better connect in with training and mentorships to help us all grow, because through collaboration, that's going to be the best possible way that we're going to all move forward. Let's see, I'm reading through some of the other comments here. Let's see. Ryan's asking, how has the state Democratic Party helped county parties in the past? And how will I support local affiliates if elected chair? So some of that I'm already starting to answer, Ryan. And if there's a specific question in there, I'm happy to answer it. But let me just add, in addition to that, every 2 years, all county parties reorganize. And so when that happens, sometimes a new chair is elected, sometimes it's a re-election, and there's all kinds of new leadership that comes in either at on the executive committee for the other officer positions, so on and so forth. And it varies widely as to what's handed down from one chair to the next, in terms of training, in terms of historical documents. All of that stuff is basically is the new chair just recreating the wheel, or is they're walking into a process and a roadmap that's already created so that they know what to do first and second and third and how to do it. And so I'd like to see a better onboarding process for those county party chairs. I'm not here to suggest that there's been zero done by the state party, because that's not true. I just think that there can be a whole lot more done. And I don't think it should be Nashville or Middle Tennessee centric. In 2019, we had I want to call it a convention, but we had a training session that was in Murfreesboro. And while there was definitely helpful parts of it, and I think the most helpful part of it was being able to collaborate and meet other county party chairs and other county party leaders across the state. I think we can go further, and in that first month, offering a virtual training. And one of the reasons why I'm pushing for there being virtual options is that living in Northeast Tennessee, I'm going to go ahead and give the example of Johnson County, that's even further east than I am, and it's about 5 hours to go one way to Nashville. That's not a day trip. And so it's much easier for somebody that lives in Middle Tennessee to be able to go in for the day and get the training, go home, maybe come back to the next day or whatever. It's less expensive and it's easier to access in, versus if you live in Johnson County or other ends of the state and trying to get in to go to those trainings, it's not as accessible. So in the first district, we had about half or less of the county parties at the Murfreesboro training. So we have to be finding ways to be more accessible, to better reach out. And this again goes into with having virtual options as well as partnering with the TDCCA for these ongoing training options. Because if we had a way for county parties to also be able to plug in and go into, I really need to beef up my fundraising skills and go through an online training program to get certified, if you will, as to how do I do this? What's the best way to use ActBlue? How can I plug that in? Crowdfunding, how can I better do that here in the local level? What can I do in that way? How do I do that ask and talk about that awkward pause as you wait, for the donor to respond, because you're going, well, can you give $200? And you just sit back and pause. And teaching a county party chair how to do that, that's incredibly important. And we don't teach people how to do that. We don't give them that opportunity to have them experience that. So I'd really like to see a lot more training, and also training that emphasizes getting off of social media so that we can better have conversations in person. Obviously, this is a social media live. I'm doing this on Facebook. I think social media is a great organizing tool, but it also hinders us in a lot of ways. And I'm going to go ahead and say just the first and easiest way to talk about that is that social media is a platform that functions it functions based on drives on likes, reactions, and comments. So in other words, if I'm receiving more likes, hearts, positive reactions, all of that stuff, I'm thinking I'm good. Like everybody's in agreement with me, and so that confirmation bias happens, and so. But reverse that, how many of us have also sat back and watched and went, wow, I'm getting my popcorn because the drama's going down here. And we're not reacting, commenting, sharing, any of that stuff. But we're watching it go down. And so all we're seeing is, wow, that's a lot of drama and very divisive. I don't want to be part of that. We've all done that. And not to mention that social media has created this culture of clapbacks. I'm guilty of it. I think every single person here has done at least one clapback on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat, on something, on some platform. And of course, we got praised by it for the number of likes and shares and all of that, from our like-minded. But how many hearts and minds did we actually change? Really? And so as we're sitting here thinking about, swing voters and swing voters and who we're trying to reach, who we're trying to turn out, and I don't specifically mean in the middle of the voting spectrum. Who are we trying to reach out to connect in with, to say that your issues matter to me? If we're strictly on social media and just arguing with people, we're not changing hearts and minds. We're not connecting with people, and we're not turning people out to vote. We're not sitting here showing up and saying that the Democratic Party is here and we're here for you. We're not giving them a place in our platform to say, oh, you're talking about rural broadband? Here it is on our platform. We're talking about rural broadband too. Let's join forces. We need to have more ways that we're talking about it in that way to bring people together to the table and unite around issues. So that's a huge thing for me that I would really like to see. Let's see, scrolling into the comments, Kennedy asked, are there any other state party programs or tactics that you'd be interested in implementing here? So, yeah, that's a great question. And, one of the things that I want to talk about is that it's a staffing structure change that I'd like to see happen in Tennessee. And it's looking at the Michigan Democratic Party. And a key one, and I want to emphasize also why I'm looking at Michigan, is because there's a lot of similarities between us and them, and they've done a lot to grow their county parties there, to talk about outreach, to have an intentional focus on helping county parties identify what are those next steps that they can be doing. And what happened with Michigan in 2020, but they turned blue again. So we need to be doing that to better, looking at what other state parties are doing. And so, but specifically looking at the staffing structure, I want to look at what they did with the executive director position. It got split into two positions. And this is, I'm sure is a completely radical idea in terms of looking at state party structure, is going, I want an external executive director and an internal one. So an executive director and executive operations director. And this will be the executive director will work with county parties and work with messaging, work with the legislative branch. And the executive operations director will work with the staff, work with fundraising, work with the executive committee, so that we can all, work on our external and internal communications, because we have to get that on board. Secondly, I'd look at what Georgia did, and with voter registration. Tennessee is one of the lowest voting turnouts for voter registration here in the nation, and so we have to be finding ways to register voters. Now, I know Rutherford County did a big push with identifying who were the purged voters and then working to re-register those voters. But the question, the few comments that I've had back, talking to party leaders in Rutherford County, was they didn't know if they were Democratic voters or not that they were registering. And so did it backfire? Were they, nobody's going to show up at a door and go, are you Democrat or Republican? I can only register Democrats. It's not how this works. So I'm not suggesting a litmus test to register a voter. I'm being very clear about that. What I'm suggesting is that we could have heat maps. We could have intentional voter registration processes where we're going into neighborhoods, where we're doing it at specific events, where we're standing outside of the grocery store, where we're looking at social data of where our like-minded people are most going, and be registering voters. What communities are the least likely to be registered to vote, and going into those communities and registering them. I know that we tend to kind of look at transient communities as if, from students to low income, and going, well, they're hard to reach. Well, yeah, but that's a huge voting block that we could be reaching out to and working with the Young Dems, the College Dems, the NAACP, the Equity Alliance, and all these other organizations. There are roundtables that currently exist that we can better partner with, and to help elevate those voices. And when I suggest partner, I get that there are 501c3s and 501c4s that we can't, there are definite limits between what a party and those organizations can do, but in ways that we can to better partner in doing that. So Kennedy, I hope that answers your question there. Um, let's see here. David asked, how would the state party help enable county parties to successfully get candidates elected, including candidate selection? So that's a great question, especially the candidate selection part. I want to first of all say that we can be working with our allied organizations directly with our county parties, because these organizations are already on the ground, know who the up and coming leaders are, and we can be asking them, who do you see coming up that can be running for school board, that can be running for state house, and work with those organizations to help tap those candidates. And when I say tap, I mean because they saw leadership potential, that they saw a retired teacher that is continually speaking out and wanting to make the system better for their students. And so this retired teacher, we tap them, if you will. We ask them to run. That's the tapping that I'm talking about. We ask them to run, and we ask other people to ask them to run, because we know that even with data that women and that women are less likely to run on one ask. So we need people asking them to run. We need to do that in a coordinated way. But we also need to have a system, because every candidate, when they get asked to run, their first question is, well, okay, then what? What do I do? How do I do this? I've never done this before. So the state party has to be a one-stop shop to help candidates go through that filing process, to help candidates go through, like, what is the first thing I need to do? How do I fill out that form? And we need to have a training process in place so that candidates can come in and go, okay, this is what I need to do to help them connect with Emerge or run for something, or the Victory Funds training, like all these training programs. We need to better help connect candidates and campaign staff in with that. I know that that's why I created this 5-day campaign training program that was going on, that I started in 2019. It actually was two different sessions in 2019 and 2020. And in total graduated 20 students. And some went on to be on the ballot, and others worked on their campaigns this past election cycle. We didn't have a training program that was easily connecting in with candidates or campaign staff in Northeast Tennessee. We're really removed because of how geographically distant we are from a lot of the major metropolitan areas. And so when I was at AU, American University up in Washington, D.C., I went through the Campaign Management Institute. So I took what I learned there, as well as managing Nancy Fishman's state house race in 2016, and working with candidates through the county party, and put all that together to talk about how do you use Vote Builder, how do you do a fundraising ask, how do you dress to be a candidate, and so we need to have those conversations and those ways that we're connecting in with, and keep a database of county party, of campaign staff that can work, as well as future candidates. And that includes candidates that ran the previous cycle. Because who's the best candidate to run that is already, especially if they got so close, or they've been, they moved that needle, they've got the name recognition, they now have the infrastructure, let's ask them to run again. And I want to also emphasize that no candidate runs as a sacrifice. That's not why any candidate's on the ballot. Every candidate runs as an investment. This is an investment of getting the message out, an investment of moving the needle, an investment of flipping the seat, an investment in growing the party. It's all an investment. And we're learning new strategies as new technologies and new tools come out to better campaign. It's all an investment. And so let me also say, because I say this to every candidate that runs and everybody that wants to serve, thank you. Anybody who's tuning in that has run for office, is currently serving, or is thinking about running, thank you. Because the fact that you want to serve a district, that you want to serve people and make your community, this state, this nation better, I think that is awesome. Anybody who's wanting to step up and be a county party chair, who's wanting to be an executive committee member, a school board, member of the school board, anything, thank you, because it is a huge undertaking to want to serve, and it is with a humble heart people do it, and I think it's amazing, and let me be one of many people to tell you thank you. I know one of the questions I've gotten, it's not on here, but somebody emailed to me, is how would I work with EC members that didn't vote for me? And part of me wanted to kind of shake my head at it, because I'm like, well, wait, we're all one party. Like, at the end of the day, if if I'm not elected, or if I am elected and somebody didn't vote for me, that's all, we're moving forward together. And so, because every single person that's running to be chair right now, every single person that's an executive committee member, every single person that's a county party chair, every single person that has run for office, who is serving, who's volunteering, we're all doing this because it's a labor of love. None of us are doing this for any type of paycheck, because believe me, we're not, well, except for a state party chair, but we're not doing it for a paycheck. This is all a labor of love. We do this for free, and we show up every day to make a difference because we care about our communities. We care about the issues. And so that to me is where differences of opinion, in terms of like if there's a personality conflict, if there's something there's been a disagreement in the past, I'm here to tell you that the slate's clean. I see the mission of the Democratic Party of too important to let any type of personal differences get in the way. And I know that every single person who has served has had a conflict with someone at one point or another within the party. And so I'm here to tell everybody that I'm not taking that with me into this election cycle, I'm not taking that in with me if I'm elected to serve as chair. We are all in this together, because we will be out of tune if a voice is missing from our choir, and we all need to be coming forward together. So it's too important that we get Medicaid expanded. It's too important that we get rural broadband and have our public schools fully funded, that we have job opportunities and get living wages. There's so many things that are so much more important than an interpersonal conflict, and I don't want to see that get in the way of our mission of the Democratic Party. Earlier today, everybody saw me, or I hope everybody got to see, that I had posted a graphic that had 6 counties looking at the 2020 election cycle, and I picked out those 6 counties that are on the verge of turning blue, and I defined on the verge as if they had 40% or more that went Democratic voters that went for Joe Biden. And so those 6 are Hamilton County, Knox County, Rutherford County, Montgomery County, Madison County, and Hardeman County. Also, if you caught the graphic before it got fixed, I want to also say, despite everybody proofing it, mistakes happen, and this is why I love feedback, and I think that being able to get feedback and get it corrected, because again, we all move forward together knowing those 6 counties are the 6 counties that are about to turn blue. That's the importance of this message. And so that would grow to our Democratic stronghold. Right now we have 3 counties in the state that are blue. So imagine if we had 9 going into 2022. That's a big deal all of a sudden. And I mean, Rutherford County, we could get Brandon Thomas elected in 2022. Please, Brandon Thomas, run again in 2022. Even if, please, if I'm sure I've seen other people asking you, but I'm asking you as well, please run again in 2022. Glenn Scruggs, when your turn's up again, when your race is up again for re-election, please run again. And we need to be doing a better job, because Hamilton County is on the verge of flipping. I would really like to see Andrea Bond Johnson run again. And this is also why having a rural strategy as part of a 95 county strategy is important. And I want to specifically talk about Glenn Scruggs' race and Andrea Bond Johnson's race. So we all know that candidates, or their districts, aren't respective to, is it urban, suburban, or rural. And so there's a lot of districts that fall in multiple categories there. In Glenn's district, it had a lot in Hamilton County and then a portion in Bradley County. So in that, breaking it down, I've got the numbers right here, is that he got 54.5% of the vote in Hamilton County, again, a county about to flip, and 16.2% of the vote in Bradley County. And one thing that we could do better as a party, and I'll say that also adding, this is conversations I've had with Glenn, so Glenn, I hope you're okay that I'm sharing this, but that we as a party can be doing a better job to better help candidates build a community in those more rural districts, to help candidates with those those one-on-one relationships, going into those, because in a rural community, talking about a fish fry is a big deal. Showing up for the Rotary, showing up for those events. And so what can we as a party with that rural strategy, as we continue to show up, because that is the biggest part of a rural strategy, is showing up, that we're not just passing through, that we are here and we are here for you. And so having that rural strategy, if we had helped with that, I think we could have gotten Glenn Scruggs across the finish line, and gotten that vote count up in Bradley County. So let's look at Andrea Bond Johnson's race, and that crossed into Lauderdale, Crockett, and Haywood County. And so Haywood's is a blue county, and in that she got 57.7% of the vote in Haywood. In Crockett, 24.9%, and in Lauderdale, 37.3%. So these are counties more in the southwest corner of Tennessee, a few counties removed from Shelby County. What can we do to help get again, having a rural strategy, we have to be looking outside of our metro centers, looking at our mid-sized towns, looking at these ways that we can better connect out, and again, get off of, but utilizing social media as what accentuates what we're doing on the ground, that we're having these tough conversations on the ground, that we're out canvassing all year round, that we're out connecting with voters, that we have a presence in our community and doing that. And so if we have a program in place, if we have training for our county party leaders to help better equip them, if we have a volunteer coordinator at the state party level that's also helping to connect volunteers out with the counties, because counties, people all the time are emailing in or looking on the state party page and going, I'd like to get involved, but I don't know how or where to go. And so this would be an easy contact back down into the county party and say, hey, let me introduce you to your county party chair, and let's get you involved. The same way that our data analyst, because I'd like to hire a year-round data analyst, that we can be looking at the 500,000 new Democratic voters that we had in Tennessee this past election cycle, and breaking that down county by county and giving that to that list to each county party chair and say, here are your new Democratic voters. Let's reach out to them. Let's get them engaged. Let's keep them connected. Because again, we need to be identifying who turned out, staying engaged with them to turn them out again. And this same thing will help as we better partner with for our municipal races that are coming up this next year in 2021. So Sullivan County, the county that's right beside Washington County, is one of the 15 counties that has a municipal election. I'd really like to see Johnson County, Unicoi County, Washington County, Greene County work to help get Democrats elected in Sullivan County. Hamilton County has municipal races. Hamilton County does. There's municipal races across the state. And so we can partner the 80 counties that don't with the counties that do, so that can be increased text banking and phone banking and on-the-ground canvassing, especially as we're looking, as a vaccine comes out with COVID. Because, I don't know if your spread is like it is here, but, it's incredibly dangerous. And so we want to keep people safe. And so how do we connect, finding ways to connect with voters? And so, but we can be doing that. We can be partnering volunteers. And what does that do also coming into 2022? As we train volunteers, as volunteers get experience working on races in 2021, those volunteers are better equipped to then go and work in 2022. Those volunteers are probably going, I want to get further involved. Maybe I'll run for the executive committee for the county party. Maybe I want to chair this committee that the county party does. Maybe I want to run for office. We start pulling more people in. We start identifying more people to be able to do that. So we start pulling more people in. The counties that are having trouble meeting quorum, all of a sudden we're getting them to help, towards quorum. As again, our presence in the community starts to increase. We're working to take those next steps with each county. So let's see. I'm going to scroll through and see if there's questions I've missed. Please feel free to drop questions in the chat. Oh, I did see that there's the questions around what the TDCCA or who the TDCCA is. So the Tennessee Democratic County Chairs Association is chaired by Jordan Wilkins, and the it's comprised of chairs or past elected chairs of each county party, and that's the membership. And then all that membership gets together, the chairs do, and vote for who the chair of chairs is for a 2-year term. And they vote for a chair, a vice chair, a secretary, and treasurer as statewide office. And then those congressional districts, because then the next level down is congressional districts, is those chairs elect who their chair, so the chair of the first district is myself. And so working on the chair, having the chair of the second district, the third district, fourth, and all 9 congressional districts. And so that gives a broader on-the-ground touch to county parties as an additional resource, and creating opportunities to collaborate with other county party leaders. For those that don't know, that are tuning in, and I've seen people comment even, what can I do to vote for you? Well, I want to first say it's the TNDP Executive Committee who votes on who the next chair is, and then everybody goes, well, who's the TNDP Executive Committee? How are those people chosen? And so the TNDP Executive Committee is comprised, and this is by state law, of 1 man, 1 woman per each state Senate district, and there's 33 Senate districts across the state. And so, for example, in District 3, that's Dr. Deborah Harley McClaskey and Jeff Clark. So every Senate district has one, has 2. And I'll be sure to, let's see, I'm pretty sure Jordan Huffman is watching. If he could drop the link in there for the TNDP Executive Committee, or if Ruby Powell Dennis could do that, I'll watch for that. If not, I'll come in and drop it for the Executive Committee. But you can go in there and find it and find their contact information, to include their email and a lot of times their phone number. So 1, please reach out, because this is also your best way to get involved. 2021 is already upon us, and as we're looking at all these election cycles coming up, because the clock is ticking for the next election day. It's already ticking. Thank you. And so thank you for posting that link. And so as such, getting involved, reach out to your executive committee member and say, I want to know what I can do to get involved because I want to get Democratic candidates elected. Reach out to your executive committee member, because these are people that also give tirelessly, give endlessly to the party, give endlessly to candidates that want to see change, and they care just as much as you do about getting the work done. So they'll help you get connected into the process, and that's the best way to reach out. If you also want to make your voice heard about how you would like them to vote for the TNDP chair, or who you'd like them to vote for, contact your executive committee member. Obviously, I'm asking you to vote, encourage them to vote for me. But again, this is your way to get involved. All the time I hear the party doesn't want to hear from me. And so I want people to know how the party is structured, how to get involved, what that looks like, the transparency around that. Because we have to do a better job as a party about inviting people in. I know that I hear, and this was something that we faced in Washington County, it's going on across the nation, so I don't mean it as unique to Washington County. This is happening in every county, everywhere across the nation, is this divide that became highlighted after the 2016 election. And so how do we bring the entire spectrum of our party together? And the best way I've known to do that is to make sure every single person has a seat at the table to be part of the process, to be part of the conversation. And we can, and as a party, it is not our job to go into the primary system. It's not. Our job is to further support all the candidates that are stepping up to run. Our job is to help county parties better equip them. Our job is to build relationships with our allied organizations. Our job is to talk about the issues and ways that we can better move those issues forward. And so we, as a party, we need to do a better job to, even if it means rebuilding the table to make it better so that it is built for everyone, we have to do that as a party. Carol is reminding that, none of this that we can do without fundraising. And so we have to be, everybody could be talking about, this is a pipe dream. If you don't have the money to do it, it all sounds great. And so, we have to talk about the money it takes to do it. We have to talk about that the first thing we have to do is, again, achieving these goals, showing that we can not only achieve a goal or set a goal, but we can achieve the goal, which is why I have the first 100 days just show that immediately this administration is going to achieve our goals. Restoring that trust. And this is something that we did in Washington County. There wasn't a lot of trust for the Washington County Party. And I looked at it the 4 years prior to my coming in, over 4 years total, the party had raised $500. That's it, $500. And so there wasn't a lot to go from. We didn't have a mission statement, vision statement, nothing. And so we had to work to rebuild that trust. And so during my almost 4 years in office, I've increased fundraising 12,300%. And I mean, and I don't mean that as I've mistakenly placed a decimal. We've increased it 12,300%. And so over those 4 years, I've raised $66,000. And we did that by continually setting an annual fundraising goal. We not only met that annual goal, we exceeded that goal. And so when we set the next annual goal, we doubled what had been the year prior. So we kept increasing our fundraising, and we did it through a lot of large dollar donor asks and identification, as well as crowdfunding and small dollar asks. We, in 2019, so as we're all used to hearing pre-COVID, we launched our State of Franklin dinner. And this dinner was going to be like our big kickoff dinner. We'd never done a spaghetti dinner or something smaller, at least not in my time here as the party. And we didn't want to do something small. Nothing we had done had been small. We're going into everything with a bang. We're going into parades and we're winning the best float. We're going into something and winning, having the best presence. So what are we going to do in 2019? So we decided, and also let me give a huge shout out to Jennifer Gardner and the entire fundraising committee that's also been helping and working on this, because it is a we that makes big change like this. And this is the type of mindset we'd be going into with the state party. So I also want to emphasize the hard work that they've done as well. So this committee, we all worked together to launch the 2019 State of Franklin dinner. And we named it the State of Franklin dinner because Washington County, or Jonesboro, which is the county seat of Washington County, was the capital of the state of Franklin. And so we harnessed that name, we captured it, and because, I mean, we're super proud of that up here. If you've never been to Northeast Tennessee and learned about State of Franklin's history, I suggest you learn about it because there's a whole lot of very interesting history there. And so we had this dinner, and to go to everything, it was about $200 to go to everything, just shy of. So the ticket itself was $100. To go to the VIP hours, $50, and the brunch the next day was $45. And we sold out. Our speakers for the dinner was James Mackler, Representative Gloria Johnson, and Representative London Lamar. And it was a fabulous night. And John Gardner, who's a professional drummer who toured with the Dixie Chicks, put together an amazing band for us that night. One of the few times that anybody will say they saw me on the dance floor dancing. And I will also say that Representative London Lamar can throw down, and she is a fantastic dancer, and we had a great time that night. And then at the brunch, our congressional candidates spoke, as well as Brad Batt, who's running for State House. It was a way for people to connect in with candidates, have a great time, and we netted $20,000 off of that one event. So going from not having that to now we've set the precedent for it, I think that as a party, we have to continue to dream bigger and think bigger as to how we're reaching out and how we're raising money, and including crowdfunding in that. Because yes, we need to be identifying and stay in contact with large dollar donors, but not and not underselling the value of small dollar donors as well. Let's see. Dan's said Mary Mancino upon her election said we need to not let Republicans define us. One of the biggest struggles of Democrats running is that they face endless incorrect characterizations from the Republican opponent about what the party stands for. In my opinion, how does the average person in Tennessee presently define the Democratic Party? And if elected, how would I ultimately want the average person to define the Dems at the end of my term? Well, that's a great question, and I want to say that in Washington County, when we did our postmortem with our candidates, Brad Batt brought up the question to point out, if you were to describe a Tennessee Democrat, how would you define it? And all of us, I mean, we all had our own ideas, but there isn't a definition for a Tennessee Democrat. And we could chalk that. I mean, first of all, at the surface level, we could say as, oh, well, Tennessee Democrat in Washington County is different than Shelby County or in Rutherford County or in Davidson County. But that's not it. We haven't defined for ourselves of who we are or what we stand for. So I think that, one, having a platform will define who we are, what we stand for. I think that nationally we get tagged with anything of that, those socialists, those radicals, lumped in. And I say this, again, not in any way, these women are shown up as fear tactics. Is that, oh, those AOCs, we don't need them in Northeast Tennessee. That Nancy Pelosi, we don't need her here in West Tennessee. It's a fear tactic. So what can we do to dispel that notion of what does it mean to be a Democrat? What does a Democrat look like? What does a Tennessee Democrat look like? And even localizing it further, because Tip O'Neill's right, all politics are local. What does a Washington County Democrat look like? What does a Shelby County Democrat look like? What does a Bradley County or, what does an Obion County Democrat look like? In 2018, we had a social media campaign in Washington County where we had Washington County voters, strictly Washington County Democrats, tell us why they were voting blue that election day. And so I had them submit a picture of themselves with 2 to 3 sentences that could easily fit on the picture to say why they were voting blue. And it could be anything from faith-based, it could be anything from women's rights to job opportunities to Medicaid expansion to whatever. We didn't censor what the reason was. We asked for brevity to keep it to make it fit. But this was why people were voting blue, and so we put that out there, and we had close to 70 of them that we ran working back about 2.5 months before Election Day, one a day. And as we got closer to Election Day, because we had so many, there was multiple ones a day. And so we did that, and people started seeing their neighbors. They started seeing their friends. They started seeing, and of course, people like seeing themselves on there. Because people would go in and share their post, their picture when the county party shared it, and you could see how it got picked up and how excited people were. And as people are watching, like, oh, that's somebody I go to church with. Oh, we're talking about the narrative of what does it mean to be a person of faith and a Democrat, and trying to chip away at that national narrative of how do we define ourselves. And I think that would have been even more impactful if we had a state party platform that better, as we're continuing to define for ourselves who we are and what we stand for, as we have messaging that's constantly out there, as I'm wearing a shirt that defines, as me as a Democrat, as that message is just constantly out there, because we're inundated with it from the other side constantly of what does it look like to be a Democrat? And it's this evil person that's unpatriotic. And so anything that is, we're continuing to chip away at that narrative in every way possible. And also that's continuing to show up and having a presence. And I'm gonna say this also speaking personally as a gay woman, like I see that impact of how that means of, coming out. And it's scary, if people that are in rural communities talk about this in terms of just being a Democrat, that it's scary to come out. What does it mean to still have community as a Democrat if you come out, if you're automatically labeled as this national narrative of somebody who's unpatriotic and wanting to tear down the system and those rioters or everything that Democrats are getting labeled with. And so as a gay woman coming out and coming against those stereotypes of, well, I want a family. I'm not saying every gay person does. I want a family. That I'm not the scary person that's here to indoctrinate your kid. That I'm, just want to live my life same as everybody else and continuing to live my truth. And so I've seen that throughout the years as I've been out, as the more that we're open and honest and authentic about who we are and defining for ourselves, like defining for me, what does it mean to live as a masculine presenting gay woman and living authentically as that and having these hard conversations as people are commenting on my social media page of, oh, are you wearing your dad's clothing? And it's not, it's continuing to have It is. It's having those hard conversations, being authentic about who I am, and continuing to show up. And I think that there's a lot as the party that we can learn of continuing to show up, being authentic with who we are, and and defining that for ourselves. What does that mean? Because obviously there's a spectrum of what does it mean to be gay in terms of do you want a family, do you not, do you fall in the spectrum, just do you identify as feminine or masculine presenting, like what does that all mean? So as a party, we again have a spectrum of where people fall. We're a big tent party, and so as we define that, we don't limit the tent. We make it so that there is room for all of us, and it still is accepting for all of us. And I want to say, Carol, you're right. They do attack the strongest Democratic voices intentionally, because attacking those is a way to attack us all. And so that's exactly what happens. So yes, absolutely right. At the end of my term, I would like us, to getting back to your question, Dan, is if I was elected at the end of my term, I would like for people to know that Tennessee Democrats are here for rural communities, that we are here, we're here to talk about the issues, that we are here to support families, we are here to support workers, that we care about our communities, and that's what I'd like people to be able to take away with at the end of my term. What does a Tennessee Democrat stand for? Because we've taken the time, we've built the foundation, we've built the messaging structure, we've connected with Tennesseans to get that out there, to say this is who we are and what we stand for. So I hope that answers your question. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I'm going to drop my website in the chat. And so feel free to check that out. And I think that went in the chat. But so check that out. If you'd like to get involved, there's a sign up page there. And please do get involved. Get involved with your county party. Reach out to your executive committee member to find out how you can get involved in 2021, 2022. And while you're calling them, tell them Kate sent you. Tell them that Kate's trying to get everybody involved, because together is how we're going to flip seats. Together is how we're going to get Democratic candidates elected. And together is how we're going to grow our party. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and I will see you all soon. So, bye now.